Board of Education, October 29, 2019 special board meeting. I've got 6:37 start. Welcome to everyone for being here and talking about instruction tonight and what directions we're heading with our schools and that. So thank you guys for being here and sharing your stuff with us tonight. This time I'd like for you to stand for a moment of silence and then the pledge. Now the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number one is the review of the agenda. It is an announced meeting, so any changes or additions, subtractions from here. If not, I'll just entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Isel,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Colby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any public comments? None with that? All right, guys, again, do want to welcome y'all being here, and we're hoping that tonight, rather than maybe rehashing scores that you guys have looked at probably for over a month or so, I guess here, of hoping that we can start an ongoing discussion tonight on how to improve instruction throughout the district, as well as what the board can do for you, and kind of working toward our May budget of things that we may need to include in our budget that's going to help you for the upcoming year. So that's kind of what we want to try to get started tonight, and try to get that whatever vision you've got to us, and that way we can help you somewhere down the line with that. We are going to start with elementary schools here, and just make a brief statement if you want to, really quick. And if I have to define brief again, Mr. Mounts, just let me know, and I'll tell you. So, no, really, I do want you. I know you guys are proud of your schools, and we're proud of the progress that we're making. So, I know sometimes it's tough to hold back when you have accomplished a great deal. First up, Concrete Elementary.
This past year, again, we saw growth. We are a 3-star school, so that's something we are very, very proud of. Our reading instruction still continues to improve. If you look at the scores, we've lowered our novice and we've increased our proficiency, which is exactly what we continue to work on. One of our main focus right now is our math instruction. So basically over a 5-year time period, we've kind of remained stagnant. And so when we look at that data, that's what we're seeing, is the scores really we're kind of staying the same. And so we're spending a lot of time looking at standards, realigning standards, thinking about instruction, and just ongoing professional development. So contacting our co-op as far as getting people in, and I'm a huge advocate for ongoing professional development, which is something we do with our reading. And so because of that, I think that's why we've seen the increase in our reading scores. And so definitely that's our goal, is to work on some math instruction. Also, special education scores still remain a concern for us. And so looking at that and what we've got as far as an area of focus and what we need to really work on with that is still a concern. Our action plan is that we're just going to continue to name and claim. We're looking at specific students and how they're scoring, what we need to do. We utilize a time during our schedule called WIN, which is called What I Need, and that's exactly what we do, is we target students to what they need. And so to continue working on that. Early intervention is key. in reading instruction. And so when I look at this and really think about our scores, when we look at our novice performing students and really identifying those students and making sure that we are identifying those students early for intervention in reading, that's a goal. We can't wait until second or third grade before we do that. We're going to just continue aligning our standards to the new materials that we have. We spent time this afternoon still working with the new materials that were purchased for us and aligning those to the standards so that teachers know that we're growing together in reading and math. And then I know you all have seen the addition as far as our needs is that we need technology. That's kind of the main thing for us at the elementary level with testing coming up, with technology and all that. So the 60 Chromebooks would allow for us to add 2 more Chromebooks to each classroom or to create an additional lab for 3rd and 4th grade, just to get more technology in their hands so that they're more familiar with that. Also, we are asking for a math or reading intervention-based program, which is for our special education students, and to continue working with our special ed staff on increasing that direct instruction with them. So, does anybody have any questions for me?
I think, well, I think you answered a lot of the things that I've had down anyway, just your, with your first thoughts when you first saw your scores and then the actions that you've taken. It sounds like to me that you're continuing with your name and claim, and those are the ways you're trying to improve. I guess when you look at your scores, what is it that really worries you?
Our math instruction worries me right now. But I'll be honest, when I started at Conferate 3 years ago, reading was a huge concern. We had over 60% of our students that were not reading on grade level. And so that was a huge, concern for us. Now, we've spent a ton of time in professional development on reading that now we're really looking at. Our math scores are staying the same, but we're just not showing the growth that we want to. And so it's kind of shifting that focus. Now we feel very comfortable with our reading instruction, what we're doing. Now it's just shifting that focus to math. And then again, our students with disabilities is a major concern.
So you feel like that the technology would have the most immediate impact
Absolutely.
for you guys?
Mhm.
Okay. Other board members, open this up, just anybody.
Just,
I guess I would also encourage you to see what other additional resources you might need right now. We're going through an interesting phase where we're perhaps looking at the contingency fund in different ways than we haven't in the past, and seeing what one-time spending would be beneficial for our students. And math scores in the elementary schools they're not just performing to the level that we would like them at. Your school, it's really all 3 of them. So it'd probably be a common theme as whether this is something that would be helpful for all the elementaries in town. But I would, encourage you to continue to think, what would be helpful? What would be helpful? Dream, and you never know. There's financial, especially one-time financial resources. Continuing resources are challenging, but one-time resources might be something that would be received. So I would encourage you to think about that, certainly just from my standpoint. And congratulations on the great things you have done. We don't want to dwell on the challenges, but make sure we don't also
Yes.
thank you on.
And I didn't give enough credit to my staff, but I have an amazing group of teachers who go above and beyond all the time. They're willing to grow and change and do what's best for kids. So it's showing really well.
You mentioned special education. What do you need? What would help you there?
I met with my special education teachers, and one of the things that they're just looking at is just a multi-sensory direct instruction approach to teaching during that resource time. We spend so much time with just reading strategies, I think we're just looking at that ongoing professional development as far, and also just a program that may be able to help to utilize those, to help students. Mhm.
Thanks.
Concord does a really good job with that Heinemann literacy. I mean, I've been through that. You guys haven't got a chance to go through, is it the book room or whatever you call it in there that's in there? It's pretty amazing what they have in there. And I know we've purchased that program for other schools, so I'm kind of interested to see how others are doing. But any other questions?
You mentioned the Chromebooks, and there's around $13,000 figure for that, so we got that, and then the $5,000 reading and math program. That's for the special education? Okay.
Anything else? Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Shear Elementary.
Go ready to take it easy on the new guy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right there.
Where do you want me to start?
Just if you want to just do a brief introduction of first impressions and what
First-
you've got there.
First impressions of the scores when I took a look at, and again, being new to the school, we saw an increase in novice, a decrease in distinguished and proficient that we're really going to have to focus on. So, and that's kind of what I tried to put in place first. We've added 2 tier 2 times during the day, one 30-minute time in the morning for reading, and one 30-minute time in the afternoon for math, to really focus on kind of what we're calling those bump kids. Those kids who were in that apprentice area, and trying to get them bumped up to proficient, because we did see that increase there. We've also got 2 80-day teachers, teaching veterans we've had come in that we hired for the 80 days for 5.5 hours a day. One working with K through 2, one working with 3 through 4, and again, they're kind of right now focused on what we're calling those bump kids, those apprentice to proficient kids. And subsequently, we've got to work on novice reduction, because there was a marked increase in the novice scores. So I'm trying to, with the 2 80-day teachers, it's given my reading interventionists and my math grant interventionists, even though they're working with some of those kids as well, but they're also being able to focus a little more on, give a little more time to some of those kids in that novice range, to try to help them, because the novice reduction is going to be something we really have to focus on. Again, kind of being new to school, I'm trying to get, a little bit of a lay of the land. So as far as IEP students, we're really looking at, scheduling there, and really trying to make sure we're getting every bang for our buck with our special ed teachers, and I know you all know what we just kind of went through at Shear. So continuity right now is just something we've been kind of fighting that, because we haven't been really full staffed. We've had a lot of subs in the building with our sped staff. So, but we're really going to be working on scheduling. And again, just continuing to look at the standards and making sure we're, aligning with the standards. The teachers, I think, are getting more comfortable with the fonts and Pinnell. And at this point, that's, again, tech is a big thing. We're hoping to maybe have one piece of technology, whether it's a Chromebook or, per student in the building. Talk about one time that might be a benefit. That's kind of where we're headed with kids.
So that would be your immediate impact?
That would be,
funding?
I think so. At this time, honestly, right now, it's just, again, I'm just kind of getting a lay of the land of the building and trying to see where the strengths are and the weaknesses are. It's a good staff. They work hard. I really think that the tier 2 times and adding the 2 ADD teachers has really helped both the classroom teachers and the interventionists to be able to focus in on what they need to focus on.
Other questions from the board?
I guess ditto, same thing. Congratulations on the things that have gone up and on the things that are still a challenge for you. You know, in addition to the technology, again, be thinking, is there any other one-time money that we could do? I mean, you don't have to answer on the spot. This is really
Right,
a longer
right.
term question. That would be a useful insert of funds to help you all out.
Well, I know that there's still some of the fonts, the read alouds that would be, you know, the guided reading books for fourth grade would be helpful. I think that's might be kind of across all the schools, if I remember correctly. So just that would kind of just round out the picture, and we would have all of that font Simpanel in place, and the more we've got in place, and you know, again, the teachers getting more comfortable using it. So that would be definitely one.
Other questions? I'd say most principals in this room, and then including myself, have always taken over a new school, and you were one that started pretty quick right before school, so you're taking on another plan and trying to work your way through it and trying to respect what's been done without overshadowing. I know it's a tough job. I've done it before. I know how it goes. Many others in this room have done the same thing. So just keep moving forward is what I said, and just keep them going.
Absolutely. It's a great staff. We're plugging away, and we're going to work hard. We're going to make it work.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Strode Elementary.
How are you all?
Well,
Giving you another handout that just had all the scores on it, if you, right here in front of your face. My first thought, when I saw our scores, they're good, but I feel like we've kind of gotten stagnant. So our clientele has changed a little bit, and we're learning to change with it and make adaptions and things like that. Our scores are higher, way higher than the state, and are high in the district too, so we're pleased with that, but there's always more work to get done. There are no significant gaps. Like if you look at our gap areas, which would be Hispanic, free and reduced lunch, or socially disadvantaged, and our SPED, they're not a significant gap, which I'm very proud of that. So we are reaching all kids. So that was my first thoughts when I saw our scores. What are we doing about it? We are looking at our literacy. We started last year with very focused on our reading groups, and this year they're like taking that on. We are very specific in our schedule. We reworked our schedule so that there is a designated time for RTI for the entire building. And not only that, it's also a time for our SPED teachers to get some of the resource time in, which that means then they're not pulling kids out of classrooms, so that protects our classroom time. We have one thing that we know, that if kids aren't ready to learn when they come to school with a lot of baggage and things that go on, we've really focused on social emotional learning this year. So on every Monday, we do social emotional. The entire building stops for 45 minutes and we work on social emotional learning, SEL. And every day we have a morning check-in. So this is building relationships, and data and statistics show that when the kids have relationships and feel comfortable at school and feel safe at school, then they do better academically. So we're hoping that that makes a difference. Also, we have another grant. We have a math grant and a reading grant, but we've also added a Project Lead the Way grant this year, which is focusing on fourth grade and on science. I didn't mention, but our science scores went up. So we're excited to see maybe those will go up even more. And then Another thing we're doing with our literacy, called Literacy Without Borders, we are taking the show on the road, basically. We're going out into the community with our literacy. We're hosting it like at the library, in neighborhoods and things like that. Bringing the families in, having reading, and different things like that. What do we need?
Immediate impact funding.
Okay. What do we need? What do we see? Immediate impact would not be what I need. I can't see it going something that you could sustain for me. I need more people. And that's something that I know that's a year in and year out thing. With some of our students, when I said our clientele is changing, some of our most needy students are taking up a lot of our resources. So there are teachers that and assistants that can't be doing what they need to do because they are dealing with very few students. So I need assistance in that. I could use more people. Another thing is our EL population is growing. Stroke has the largest in the county population. I have more students this year than ever that do not speak any English. Some have never been to school. And I know we're working on getting an EL, not an EL, but an English as a second language teacher. That's in the process, but I could use another translator or more help. And I can see that that's going to be a situation that we need help with in the future. I'm very thankful for the 3 class reduction size teachers, growth teachers that you guys allowed Strode to have this year, which gave us 5 kindergartens, 5 first grades, and 5 third grades. I appreciate that, but now I also have 4th grade sitting with 30 kids in every class. And that's hard. My 3rd grade outscored my 4th grade last year on both reading and math. Or no, it was flip-flop. They did reading, the other did math. Their scores were so much higher, but they were sitting with 22, 23 kids in the classes, 3rd grade. So I think class size does make a difference when you're sitting with 30 kids at 4th grade with 3 teachers. So when another thing that I need, and I put this on my list, and this I've heard this every time, are more Chromebooks with testing going to online, and the need for kids to know how to type really well before they get there. That would be a bonus. And I made my wish list big. I said my teacher laptops were bought in 2009, and they're starting to die. And they're outdated, and they really, so. And I think that's it. I need people. I need help with some situations where I'm stretching my staff really thin.
Are you referring mostly to like emotional disabilities is what we're looking at there with people to help out in those situations?
And
to where,
autistic as well.
right. But your immediate, I mean, things that we could do for you now is probably the Chromebooks, getting there. I think a lot of the things that you have here are things that we that we talk about this conversation, ongoing conversation that maybe time May rolls around when we look at budget, things that we might be able to do with that.
But there is definitely immediate need for some help with some of my most needy students.
You said your laptops are 2009? How many laptops do you have this 2009?
Probably most of my teacher laptops, so about 30.
Just to reiterate the same thing, and I think now the theme is coming from several levels. Just encourage you to think a little bit more outside of maybe what you had done, and see if there's anything that specifically would help work on the areas. And sadly, probably what we have more of now is one-time money than ongoing money.
And, but that's not what my need is. Just saying.
And congratulations on the great things you are doing.
We have a great school and a great staff. I know they said that too, but we really do.
Any other questions, comments?
No, I agree with you. 30 kids in one class is crazy.
For a 4th grade,
Yeah,
it really is.
that's something that needs to be addressed, in my opinion, quickly.
And I know CAP is 28 for 4th grade. but sometimes things on paper.
You have how many fourth grade classes?
Three. I had 5 last year. That was my biggest class. They moved on.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Justice Elementary.
Hello.
We started worrying about the stroke.
Still in traffic.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying that, you know the expression, you missed it by that much? We missed 3 stars by half a point, and that was pretty disheartening. But it is what it is. So we did see some gains. This year, our proficiency showed us at a medium level. Usually it's the growth that carries justice, and it was just the opposite this year. Our proficiency was medium and our growth was low, which really surprised me because that's always what they carry. Like I said, that's what carried us. But still, one thing that was noted in there, under the economically disadvantaged, when they broke it down by different gap groups, economically disadvantaged was our 3rd highest area. I'm not going to say it's super high, but it was one of the higher. We also had an increase in proficiency for reading. We did go up 3.5 points. And surprisingly, I mean, this was really great. I thought we had no novice in our Hispanic subgroup. So I thought, in reading, and I was real pleased with that. Our 3rd and 4th grade girls, this hadn't happened before, but our girls this year, we had more girls scoring proficient and distinguished in reading than we have. Usually that trend has always been the boys have been higher achiever, but this year our girls turned it around. We also had the lowest level of novice in math for our Hispanic children. And this is something I'm really proud of. We, last year, Justice funded our own STEM lab. That was not, this year we are under the Project Lead the Way grant. But we converted some positions last year, opened our own STEM lab. Mrs. Clark was kind of putting together her own STEM curriculum. And she and Ms. Welsh doing the science together. We went from 1.2% distinguished in science to 7.7% this year, which is really good, I think. So I'm really excited. I was talking to Mrs. Clark about that today. I'm really excited now that we've got that new Project Lead the Way grant with the materials that go with that. I'm kind of excited to see what our science will look like this year. So that was real positive. We were real pleased with that. Some of the things that we think maybe is kind of moving us in the right direction. Leslie was pointing out today, she said, you know, when we were talking about our Hispanic children, how we had no novice in reading, she said, you know, if you stop and think about it, we had a primetime reading grant last year. And not that we targeted our Hispanic population, but that those were the families that showed up the most frequently and most consistently. Plus, a lot of our Hispanic children participated in another grant that we had last summer with the summer reading program. And strangely enough, our Born Learning Nights for our kindergarten and 1st grade that our Family Resource Center coordinates, a lot of those families that attend those are Hispanic families. So we've got a lot of early intervention that might be, you know, lending itself to helping that. I don't know if you remember last year, those of you that were here last year, I was telling you that when we hired our new PE teacher for last year, I told him, I said, one thing I want you to do, this is kind of a non-negotiable, I want you to do a 10-minute cross-brain activity group with all the kindergartners every day. And then we would reevaluate every 9 weeks to see which kids had mastered that. And then we would continue on with the children that still couldn't cross that, because studies show that kids that can't cross that lateral line struggle with reading. And so we continued that, so we're in our second year of that going on with our kindergartners. But strangely enough, on our MAP scores this year, so our first grade MAP scores, so think about those were the kids that had that cross-brain activities consistently last year. We had higher MAP scores in reading and math. I think reading came in at 70% proficient distinguished for first grade, and math was 74%. We haven't seen 70s, I think maybe one time, and that was maybe the 15-16 year. So I kind of thought that might be a little promising, that maybe that's really helping those kids, you know, trying to build them at a better foundation and moving them on. So that was promising. I know it's not part of K-Prep, but I wanted to mention that. I also talked about our STEM lab, how I thought that was going to help boost. And I want to say too, one thing I think that has really helped, and a big shout out to Julie for this, because she kind of got us all on board with the Fontes and Pinnell, and you all were kind enough to purchase that for our K through 3 last year. And let me tell you, our teachers love that. And I see such an increase in the quality of our reading instruction that's going on in the classrooms. That coupled with, it's called EET, and let's see if I can remember, my speech paths will be proud of me, Expanding Expressions Toolkit. It's actually a speech type program that you teach reading, you teach writing with. Well, a couple of years ago, we started implementing that in our grade, in the regular classrooms. And I really feel that's really helped increase our proficiency, because kids are better able to get their answers and their thoughts on paper, especially during K-Prep. So I kind of feel like with the reading and the writing, that those things are starting to come together for us. So the Fontes and Pinnell has been probably one of the very best things you all have ever done for us, is purchase that. Now what we'd like to ask for is, how about fourth grade? Because I've got, our fourth grade really doesn't have anything to work with. And I was trying to talk to my fourth grade reading teacher, and she said, and I said, well, we have them up through this level. She said, yeah, but a lot of the kids already worked up to that level in third grade. So we really are desperate, getting desperate for that. I went ahead and purchased the interactive read aloud. Sorry, looking at Julie for help. The interactive read aloud, just because we needed something to get our fourth grade going. So I got that on order this week, but that's something I had listed on my needs list. So now I want to tell you what we're doing new for this year, just some things we've kind of expanded with. You know, I'm really fortunate because I sit 50, I joke, we're 50 feet away from a gal that knows a whole lot what's going on with reading, and we follow Julie with the Fontes and Pinnell, and that's been one of the best things we've done. We also really liked what we saw her doing with the win time. And so this year, like Rudan said, scheduling is really, really important. So we have a school-wide win time in the mornings, about 30 minutes every day. So we kind of redid some of our interventionist schedules for 80-day positions to kind of stretch them out longer, trying to get as much time as I can with them for what I can afford. But we have reading and math win time every day, Monday through Thursday. But this year we added every Friday, we have added a social skills lesson for, we sat down with each grade level, targeted what social skills our kids needed. We did a long-range plan through Christmas with our SPED team. Our SPED team leads this. We have the SPED teacher leading it, and then I have 2 other members off the staff assigned to each grade level. And we're doing that 1st through 4th grade. And we have a specified social skills lesson that we're teaching. But the neat thing is it's not necessarily every kid that gets that social skills. It's what's that topic and which kids in your grade level need it. So those groups are fluid. They're going to only be targeting children that we know need those particular social skills. So we're in, this will be our 3rd week coming up of implementing those social skills. So I'm excited to see how that's going to go. The other thing, I was counting up today that we have 2 80-day interventionists. They work 4 days a week. And then I have 1 full-time AmeriCorps position, and she does interventions. And then I have a Read to Achieve grant teacher that does just reading. Right now, we're servicing, and this is kind of a low ball number, 103 3 children that are not special ed for Tier 2 and Tier 3. So they're getting win time every day, they're getting their small group guided reading with their teachers, and then they're also getting interventions on top of that. So we technically are triple dosing our kids in reading. It's a wonder they're not exhausted from learning. I mean, they are constantly in front of someone. My personal preference this year is kind of backing off some of that technology and getting them face-to-face with adults, getting that good, strong instruction. And I know that technology is important and we need to get into for keyboarding, but I just think there's no substitution for good face-to-face instruction. And a lot of kids, you know, we're having to teach them how to interact with each other and with adults. So one thing my final thing I wanted to share with you new this year, and I told Mr. Christie about it, but I was sharing with Mrs. Mann, I don't know, a month or so ago, and she called me at 8:15 one night. She said, "I got something if you're interested." I'm like, yeah. We, Justice, we are partnering with the National Youth Advocate Program with Michelle Sames here in town, and we are going to have a full-time trauma therapist on staff, on site, 5 days a week. I just submitted a grant today to the Greater Clark Foundation for $5,000 to help fund the occupational therapy type materials we want to have for this classroom. We're starting off with 10 kids just to get started. I've got 8 so far that are on board. I've got a list of about 55 that qualify for services. But what they're going to do is, it's a new type of therapy, and it's called neurosequential screening. And basically, you're looking at children that have had different trauma events, and the therapist will do kind of a map of their brain and where this trauma has affected. Then they will go back and give therapy to try to heal those parts of the brain so that we can get them healed from that trauma, so then we can put, you know, their learning up front. We can get that part of it behind us and start fresh. So I'm really excited. Our goal was to have that up and running December 1st. So I've got 8 out of the 10 parents already today have agreed to it. So we're going to have the intake set up here within the next couple of weeks to get that rolling. So I'm really excited to see where that's going to go. It seems like everything we've done at Justice over the past several years has ended up being kind of a therapy-based approach to everything we do, from behavior to learning to you name it. So, what can I answer for you?
Immediate impact funding, what can we do? What would you?
Well, I know that you're not necessarily looking for what I'm saying, but people is one of my biggest needs right now, especially in the area of special education. With the large influx of children with autism, a high level, a lot of high needs. And I don't know if you're aware, 25% of our population is on an IEP of some sort. And that's, you know, a quarter of my population, so that's a lot of children. Like I said earlier, I don't think there's a substitute for good face-to-face instruction with children. That's just my personal preference. I think Ruth Ann was right when we talked about looking at class sizes. My last 2 years in the classroom, I taught in a different county, and my school decided to do a lower class size initiative. And I taught first grade those last 2 years. The first year we did that, I had 13 children. And by February of that year, I was learning on second grade content. The second year, I had 17 kids. Didn't quite hit that second grade quite as fast, but it really does make a difference. My biggest need right now is help with assistant positions with my special ed. The other thing that I think would make an immediate impact, especially in my 4th grade, would be the Fontes and Pinnell guided reading books. I know one kid for sure. We have 3 4th grades currently. I look for us to go back to 4 4th grades next year. So technically we probably need 2. Like I've said, I bought one of the interactive read aloud kits myself. So, it's always nice to have extra Chromebooks. I would like to try to come up with 20 more for my STEM lab. They currently use our computer lab, which is fine, but that's the biggest need. You know, if there's ever any, and this I think is just a really hard one to find, is training for, especially for our special ed teachers on the Orton-Gillingham method. I think that's really key. It's used for a lot of children with dyslexia. I know we don't technically identify children with that disability, but as educators, we know we have a lot of children with that need. It's kind of a hard program to find, and to have teachers trained. I do have one teacher on staff who came from out of state that has been trained in that method, and I'm always sending kids to her to try to, hey, what do you think about this one? So just trying to get everybody's needs met.
Board members, questions, comments?
Is there anything that we can do to help in the math category? It looks like we went into novice from 13.3 to 21.9.
Yeah, we've had the same, we are on, what, year 6 now with the same math, and I think Justice, if I'm not mistaken, Brenda, didn't they pilot it the first year they opened? So technically, Justice has had that program for 7 years, and scores have stagnated and dropped. We haven't had math professional development in some time, so it'd probably be good to bring that back. We have had training over the new standards, but really just kind of realigning everything. Are there new methods out there that we're not aware of?
Other questions? So, same thing on the math, and it's among all the elementaries. That's what really seems to stand out at the elementary schools as a real burning need is perhaps a new program in math.
Possibly, and it's not necessarily the program that brings your improvement in math. I mean, you can pull things from all different directions. That certainly gives teachers a way to go, but I don't, it's hard to, a program, one bullet doesn't solve the whole problem. So I think it's time that we look and see what's out there, what other resources are out there.
If I can speak, we are piloting a new math program at Concord in one class of every grade level, and that's with Hope Midland. And then we're piloting the newer Envisions in math at Strode, same thing, K through 4 in one classroom. So that teachers will be able to have taught 2 different programs, and then we can come back together and see if one of those could possibly answer some of our math gap problems.
Strode is loving
Other
it.
than
Strode is
Envisions.
loving the new Envisions, yes.
And Concord's loving the new,
Yeah, and we're loving what we got. Yeah, definitely something, especially too, to help with children with special needs. That's always a tough one, reading and math.
Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I do want to, encourage, with teachers on our schools on that grade level, like we just went through elementary, and obviously there's a lot of things that we always need, and I would encourage y'all, when you all get together in meetings, to look at innovative ways that we may be able to help you when we get to budget times. Maybe it involves sharing somebody for the day, something around there. Just look at some of those type of things can help us. I have a hard time understanding it, and I was in education for 28 years sometimes when you guys come in here and talk, and I'm sure that other people on the board have that too. So it really would pay for you guys to get together and to talk about a lot of these things. And it's obvious when we look at our test scores and we hear things that there's things that we need to attack before they get here. I mean, obviously, I retired almost 10 years ago. Our minority population at that time was right around 7 to 8%. I think now it's probably running 13, 14% somewhere to what I can see. And we had very minimal Hispanic population when I was here, and I think now the Hispanic population is our largest minority population that we have within the county. So I mean, that has some impact on decisions we make. Now, giving that right there, when I look at many of the Hispanic scores, they are very, very well. In some areas, their proficiency distinguished matched right along with our regular students. So I mean, obviously there's some things that are going on well, but I think we do need to start looking at things. I think Ms. Rock brought about interpreters and things like this. I mean, you do have to communicate with families, and that does make it difficult sometimes when you don't have that. So, I mean, these are things that I think that we need to know, that we need to get ahead of the curve. And you may know them, and you may be sitting out there in the audience sometimes saying, well, why don't they do this and why don't they do that? Sometimes we don't know. So I do think there are some things that you guys can work on and have plans, and when we get around budget time, then maybe we can have an impact on those as well. Any final thoughts from board members on the elementary? Good, but thank you all very much, and appreciate the work that you all do. I know there's a lot of issues. I mean, some people brought up about the emotional issues, emotional disabilities, and I hear that every time when I come to the schools, and I know how that can take away from learning from everybody else when those things are not dealt with in the way that they should. So thank you for everything that you do there. Let's see, let's go to Baker. Mr. Mounts.
Mr. Peridot, I have 6 Post-it notes here, so that's at least 45 minutes worth of
Okay.
material.
All right. Can you put that in an email and send that to me?
I do want to start out, regardless of scores and stars and percentages, I just want to give a shout out to my staff. They are absolutely fantastic. They're willing to do anything in the world for children, whether it's a tested area or a non-tested area. I think we do a great job not only at Baker, but as a district with providing opportunities for kids. So having said that, when we looked at our test scores, we were very pleased. We saw gains in reading, math, social studies, and even some gains in writing. Some notable accomplishments. We were pleased with our social studies scores. They increased about 15% to an all-time high. Improvement, students with IEPs. Last year we were labeled TSI. If I've said TSI one time, I've said it 5 million in the last year, and really fixated on that, and just very proud of our special education teachers as well as our gen ed teachers who co-teach. They put a lot of work in, a lot of conversation, a lot of meetings. We also showed novice reduction over the last 4 years. We've reduced novice in reading and math for 4 consecutive years. And again, social studies, very proud of their work in social studies. Areas of improvement, even though we showed gains in writing, it was 39.4. That's the highest ever we've had when 5th grade was tested alone. But writing continues to be an Achilles heel. We are currently in the process of working with Ms. Ward and Ms. Bush, writing SMART goals, visiting Carter County, seeing what they do with writing. Our performance of African Americans in reading, math, social studies, and writing, that was a demographic, a subgroup that really has drawn some concern from us, not only this year, but in years past. One of the things that we're implementing this year is our new win time. I think Ms. Monfield and a couple other schools, What I Need. That takes place 2 times a week, and if they are a tiered student, they have intervention 5 days a week. Something that I can truly say that we did last year and we're continuing to do this year is just using data and being very strategic when we look at data. Kids on the cusp, we don't want those kids that are up to fall, and we don't want the kids that are down that can be pushed up to stay there. So we want to make sure that we're looking at that data and being very strategic. That was very helpful with our students with IEPs last year. As far as a last area of improvement, we have these kids for 2 years, and I want to keep students with IEPs on our watch list. I was talking to Ms. Sharrock tonight. This stuff can shift. You might be a 4-star this year, but the way this stuff is so shifty, you might be a 2 next year or 1. So we want to make sure that we're keeping all these things in the forefront and we're not slipping. One of the things we did last year that was very beneficial was a site visit. It was very eye-opening to Carter County. And then we brought that back and had a wonderful time going to RDC last year. As well as Conkright. This year we went to Strode and went to GRC, and other schools put on their showcases as well. We're doing a lot of great things here in Clark County, and there's a lot of learning to be had among the schools here, and just sharing those ideas. As far as things that we need, one thing that would have the most impact would be a part-time, 100-day reading interventionist. The way we schedule kids, the way we group kids, as Mr. Rock and some of the other principals before me, we do need bodies, and I'm gonna tell you, I get more bang from more bang for my buck on a retired school teacher who has that experience, who they still have that flexibility to go be with their grandbabies, but when Jerry Sipes, Cindy Gaines, Becky Jackson, whomever, those names that we use, when they come in, they've got that experience, there is no catch up, and for $16,000, I could have one for reading, and that's truly what I need. Now, a couple, 3 weeks ago, I sent you an extensive list. It looked like it was a treaty to end a war. But I did send you, to your question, Mr. Heisel, the pie in the sky, what are the big things? If you look over that list, we have needs in our band, needs in our orchestra, and I know there's an item on the agenda tonight to talk about band. I don't know if that includes Baker and RDC's band, but if not, it's in my list. We'd like $30,000 for band, $30,000 for orchestra, just the same. But if I get one thing tonight, I would ask for a part-time reading interventionist. And I know there was some stipulation over stipends on some previous board meetings that I watched. I don't know if you've been reading the newspaper, but 5 through 12, for the last 2 years, they've participated in something called On the Table through I think it's the Greater Clark County Foundation, I believe. And one of the things Baker's students said, we need more clubs. We have almost 20 clubs, and I'm coming out of our Section 6 money to pay teachers a $300 stipend. That $300 gets 12 sessions with kids. And I know that's not what we're looking for on our needs, but if the kids say they want it and they need it, I'm gonna go to bat for them and put it on my needs assessment. Even if it is a one-time thing, I would like the teachers to get paid for their time of putting at least 12 hours in. I've got teachers that do musicals that put hundreds of hours in, and I think $300 is certainly worth their time. You've got that huge encompassing list there. Part-time reading. As far as technology goes, our PTO has been wonderful the last 5 years, raising money for Chromebooks and things of that nature. I think we're in good shape. We're still a few Chromebooks off from being a one-to-one school. But I do think part-time interventions, reading interventions would be most helpful at this time.
Board member questions?
I'm curious about the band and the orchestra. The instruments you have today, has the students provided them? Have you had them? How long have you had those?
To be honest with you, it's a mixture. It's a mixture of school, board-owned instruments, as well as rentals from various companies. I'm not the expert on it. I can get some information for you from Mr. Lee, our band director, as well as Mrs. Rohr, who services the whole district.
That's okay. I was just kind of curious.
I know they're expensive. One instrument can cost $6,000. I think Dustin paid how much for a used instrument earlier this year?
It's like 3,000.
$3,000 for a used instrument. And I've been told, I don't know if this is true, that our intermediate age kids are smaller and those instruments are even more because they're built to those specifications of a 5th or 6th grader. So, but I can get that info for you if you'd like.
That's okay. I was just wondering. That's okay.
So going along the theme of needs, and if we might have a more flexible funding available on a one-time basis, 100-day teachers would actually qualify in that group, because this would be just an engagement just for this year, and then next year we could see what else might be available. Is that a correct assertion, or am I not thinking about that correctly?
Those are non-renewed. They can only work up to 129 days, I believe. We already have 2 employed. We kind of went away as a district from that, and now it seems to be circling back. There's articles in Kentucky Teacher that was just come out. Schools in Western Kentucky are hiring these retired teachers who have that experience. And we've been fortunate to have some really good ones that impacted our schools.
Well, sort of where I was winding around to with that is we don't really have good information on projections for fiscal 2021 yet. So it's difficult to commit to something ongoing, but potentially we could have an impact at your school by maybe providing more funding on a level like that gets more face-to-face teaching in front of the students, and at the same time qualifies as a non-recurring expense.
All of those 100-day folks and all of your growth features that I've talked to you about that we've had to have because of growth and grade levels, those are all one-time costs. They're, each of them are pink slip, they're at the end of the year, their contract ends.
That might be an opportunity. And of course, congratulations on all the wonderful things that are going on for school and scores that you've had.
Other questions, comments? Thanks, appreciate it. RDC.
How's everyone tonight? Fired up to be here, as usual. I'm going to give you guys a little handout. You can pass that around. I'm trying to be extremely efficient this evening. Some things we're very proud of, our reading and math scores are the highest they've ever been. We've got the highest number of proficient distinguished that we've ever had. We've got the lowest number of novice. In fact, we're extremely happy with that. So reading and math, our reading are as high as a lot of elementary schools. Our math is well over, we're over 50% now. My first year, we were under 40. So in 5 years, we've jumped over 10 percentage points. Seventh grade, we had under 10% novice, I think just 9% novice. So we've already tweaked some things with math. We're being very specific with curriculum that we provide our advanced students. And it's different. It's not just going faster. It's a different curriculum to meet their needs. So we've taken a really good look at our gifted and talented population and trying to push them. We had over 25% distinguished in reading. That's pretty daggone good. That's a fourth of the school are distinguished readers. We're also happy to say we've been able to do that without sacrificing our whole child approach. We meet the needs of our kids, whether it's social, emotional, medical. We're doctors, we're lawyers sometimes, we're dentists, and everything in between. Things that concern me, I'm very concerned with our special education. I'm also especially concerned with writing. As a district, when we're celebrating 39% no offense to Mr. Mouse, that's pretty damn poor, 39%. So I think we really got to work together to get a district-wide plan. Our social studies is going a little in the wrong direction. We've had some very candid conversation with my staff on why that is. Met already many times at our PLC. So we've essentially redone, refocused our intervention time. So now we're including extensions. We've also invested in software. We're one-to-one. We just got that this year, so we have about 1,300 machines in the building, about 930 kids. It's taking time to teach them how to work that, and it's also taking time, because I agree with a lot of the principles. You can't put a kid on a computer and have them teach them and think that's the answer. If we did use a board, it'd save a heck of a lot of money, right? $200 piece of machinery is a lot cheaper than a $60,000 teacher. I say that intentionally because we've got to have a blended learning environment. We've got to be able to differentiate, and I think that's the piece that technology gives us, the ability to differentiate learning individually so that we can meet students face-to-face that need it. So I'm really happy with that initiative. What's in front of you? One time, our focus against special education and professional development. First, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Total about $19,250 of things I can use right now. Training our staff. Again, special ed is a big concern. There's no way to candy coat it. Mr. Bowen and I have worked together along with this man on trying to address some of those things. We've completely redone our special education approach when it comes to resource time, resources, instructional resources. So these are things that we can go and get better with now. We've also included things with our career and arts. Some things on there, some big price numbers, I get it. On the back is our technology replacement rotation plan. Yes, we're one-to-one, but we'll only be one-to-one for about a year. We don't start thinking about replacing machines. You've got to be very strategic when you're looking at technology because it's outdated so quickly. You celebrate, we're one-to-one! I got your attention. And then all of a sudden, 100 machines go down that you bought at once. So thinking forward, not backward, really trying to already start planning for replacements. You have any questions?
I love this paper. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, you asked me for specifics, and I really want to get better now. I've only got kids for 2 years. When you look at our current design and setup, I got them for 2 years. We replace half the building every year. So if I don't get them now, then, you know, I'll work with Mr. Bowen to get them. Really meaningful thing, yes, like your
Board member questions, comments?
How old are the Chromebooks you have now?
Pardon?
How old is the Chromebooks you have now?
The oldest ones we have are about 5 years. We started on this initiative year 2 for me, year 1, we progressed some other things, but we really made it a mission, our kind of focus, our technology committee meets with SciBase twice a year, gives updates on where we are with technology, again, setting the long term, where we want to be going, we've been able to get there. But over the last 2, I've bought close to 500 probably. We really invest a lot of Title I money. And also Section 6 general funds, I allocate, I think I bought $120,000 worth of Chromebooks this year. To try to make the last push because a lot of our intervention program depends on running other things we bought for it. So we're really excited about what we're going to get.
The graph that stood out to me the most that I printed off was the writing challenges.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to reflect my poor memory, but in the last year or two as a board, we kicked around a $500,000 investment in a writing program. Is my memory right on that? But we,
Yes. That was on the list of the things that the curriculum needs.
okay.
Of course, I would at this point say too that we need to start, and that's why we're piloting a math program this year. That math that we did 5, 6, 7 years ago now is probably getting.
That's a curricular item that we considered and then we decided not to invest
At
in.
that time, yes.
Okay.
You actually approved writing coaches
Yeah.
at every building a couple years ago. It is my last evening.
I didn't slow picture that either.
So we have writing coaches at each school?
No, they were never put in the budget.
Oh.
You approved them. The board approved them.
I think things like that we'll certainly want to take a hard look at again. You know,
No,
what can we do?
It's not a lack of effort, guys. We're working our tails off. Our guys are working their tails off. So we got to figure something else out. We can't just keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting this result. It's insanity, literally.
Yeah, again, you know, the investments that we can funnel down to you all so you all can be the most effective.
We appreciate it greatly.
And I always appreciate the great work you all are doing, and especially your work individually. You've been a great leader out there.
I appreciate that. We'll have some more showcases. We'll get you guys back after. That's the end of my time. Try to stay 2.5 minutes.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Appreciate it.
GRC.
I'll just jump in and say, when you asked initial thoughts, I would say that probably the last 2 years at the high school has kind of been limbo because high school, as far as accountability, has been up in the air. There's not been a whole lot of accountability there other than the ACT. When I first looked at these, I'll be very honest, I was kind of upset. I still am a little bit. I think you have to understand that the proficiency at this time here, the proficiency score was based strictly on ACT alone, the reading and the math part of the ACT. Transition readiness is a brand new category course. It's no longer considered like just career readiness, but it's also, we've got immediate academic components. So this is the first year in the transition readiness piece. This year, proficiency changes again. So we're flipping it back, go back to the sophomore level for reading and math proficiency. So when you looked into it, or I looked into one glaring area that came out was probably, we were close to 80% novice in special ed in reading and math roughly. And again, that was on the ACT, junior ACT test that came from. So it was troubling. I think that's a ongoing problem. We've got to try to figure out how we're going to intervene. We've already started this year with the 6th and 7th period. We completely flipped some teachers around, and we're working with not just 11th graders, we're also hitting 10th graders and focused on just basic algebra skills as well as reading. Obviously, at the high school, if you're not reading close to grade level, it's tough. We're probably not going to get you there. The other academic indicator in there was the science and the math. Science and the writing. A lot of work to do with the writing, I would say that. Science was a little bit disappointing, but that was when we did have the glitches last year and had to stop testing. It was online testing. So one of the issues we got going forward is, several years ago, we spent a lot of money on Inspires. We got nice calculators, but you can't use those for the test. You got to use the online. Since everything's going online, we can only use the online calculator. So the only way for us to practice that is for teachers to make online tests for the kids to start working with. So that's kind of what we're gearing towards come January. You can still use our nice Inspire calculators on the ACT, but you cannot use it on the 10th grade test. One notable thing I think happened last year, I don't know that everybody's aware of it, we did pay, GRC did use some of their allocated funds to pay for the entire 10th grade to take a national ACT test that counts for college, just like the state. I think it was $35. We've already signed up. We are testing the entire 10th grade again this year. So it's it's an actual good benefit for parents, saves them some money. It's also trying to get kids better prepared to meet those, trying to be proactive to get them there.
Is that an actual, that's just a test though, right? That's not preparing for the test, that's just taking the test,
That's
right?
just taking the test, yes. We had a lot of success. One of the things you see on that list right there at the very top, we've been working with the company Torch Prep the last 2 years. Last year, our composite actually jumped. We got the initial scores back without the special ed scores because they're always delayed, but our composite had jumped a point. And then when those other 40 scores come back, it dropped us another half a point. So seen some positives using that. So that's one of the things we were already contracted some with them, but trying to ramp that up, do more of it.
Is your internet better?
Somewhat. Depends on where you are. We still have glitches in places. So.
You had issues last year during testing, though, didn't you?
Yeah, we stopped right when we started on test.
And those kids just didn't get counted?
No, they counted. Some of them got locked out. They weren't able to retest. Some of them got to start over. They had already, depending on where they were at or if they'd logged out, they weren't counted.
What's the average ACT score for students? Do you know that?
At GRC?
Yeah, GRC.
Probably around 19.9,
19. What do you think of the ACT test? I saw that Transylvania, I think it was Transylvania?
Western's doing
is doing away with ACT scores.
I don't think, my thing is I don't think every kid should have to take that test. It's not going to mean a lot to every kid. I do think if you're going to go, I draw two parallels. One is if you're going to go to the Ivy Leagues, the big up north colleges, yes, that's very important. I don't know so much it is in other ways. I think it's an indicator, but that's about it. Unfortunately, that's what most colleges, and I kind of applaud on Western. I'm anxious to see how that goes and what happens with it.
So just having a kid that has taken it several times, it seems to be, and this is just from a father speaking, seems to be more strategic than anything. You have to know how to take it, not necessarily you have to know the information, but there's a strategic component to it on how to take it. And I don't know if that can be taught, or if there's things in this.
Well, that's what
Torch Prep
does.
Is it? Okay.
They try to teach you those tricks of the trade. We'll say, Miss Pinson, Cherry Lynn Pinson is working days with us right now. We've got her coming in.
So
She targets a lot. She'll do some whole class, but she also target individual kids in her school. And it's important, obviously. Everything's kind of highlighted, broken down by category. None of it's tied to personnel. It's all would be stuff that would be used immediately or put in place. Obviously, there's some money for technology in there, but there's some other areas like media arts, graphics, that's smoke signals. I'm not mine at 10 years old, but most of those labs I think are about 7 years old, so they're using high-tech software and some of that stuff, so some of their machines. There is some money in there for professional development. Solution Tree is one of the large vendors, but they usually have really great programs that we participated in several years ago. All those teachers, I guess one of them is assistant principal back in the back. Another one's a principal at preschool, but we're all people that we had trained in it. And then the others have gone to Westford County to work. It's time probably to go back and invest in some younger folks as well. And then some other professional development stuff in there too.
Is the PSAT test, is that what drives national merit semifinals?
Yes.
So is that something that families just have to pay for on their own?
Right now they are, yes.
I appreciate you putting this list together.
Any other questions, comments for Mr. Bowman?
And of course, congratulations on the 3-star rating. I mean, we have to be happy with the good things that are going on too. There's always challenges, but we need to celebrate the good things.
We'll settle with it. It's not where we want to be, but like I said, it's been a shooting. We never knew exactly what we were aiming for until now.
Thank you. Appreciate it. As you guys can see, and if you've ever been around education very much, there is never enough money to do everything you want to do. So I did want to take about a 10-15 minute recess, and if you did have follow-up questions you just want to talk to the principal about, this would be a good time to go ahead and do it. Principals would be a good time to get in another extra shot about something if you want to at this time. And I guess since maybe a couple of them left, and you guys have more money now, so I guess. No, I'm just teasing, but, let's just take about a 10-15 minute recess if you want to. But thank you guys again for being here for this. The board on how you want to proceed with this. Obviously, you were given a lot of information over the last hour or so. Just want to see how you want to proceed with this. Just give everybody what they want.
Yes.
I'm an old principal. When you come back next week, they'll want more. I know how it is, so. There's not enough, I'm telling you, there's not enough money to do what you need to do. And you know, it is a tough decision. And I just feel like when we have it, that we should make a good faith effort of doing it. Obviously, you can't give everybody everything that they want, but if we can somehow put some things out there, give them some opportunities to work with it, then like I said, keep the ongoing discussion about what are these things that you need when we get around to budget time, and what can we do budget time, and how can we be innovative or whatever with that to work out what is going to have the most effect on instruction here in the district for each school. But I don't want to jump into anything of how much money we've got or want to do, or I just want to see where you guys are, and if you want to try to do some funding tonight and talk about additional funding later on as well. Or, you know, we still are very, very good as far as our contingency. So I have no qualms with any way that you want to go.
I'm a huge supporter of getting more people in the buildings, whatever we need to do, whether it be a lump sum. And that's what I keep hearing tonight. And when I'm in there, I see it, they need it.
Yeah, I understand that sometimes though with people, again, and a good point was brought up by Mr. Mounts about, you know, just interventionist about, you know, like a $16,000 shot here or something there. If that's something that they felt like they would need, I can understand those type of things. We have to be very careful, obviously, about reoccurring expenses, but,
Which is
you know, there's a lot of needs, and, you know, and that's why I want them to be able to identify what's going to have the biggest impact for you right now. You know, sometimes you can put people in there if you're not prepared to have them in there, then it's not a good thing for you to do. And that's why I just think if you've got the money, and we don't really earmark the money, but have the money and they decide how they want to go with that.
Well, I agree with Ms. Ritchie. At Strode, with, you know, you got 30 students in fourth grade classroom, 3 teachers trying to teach 90 kids. It seems it could be a big impact if we could add another teacher there for the students.
I understand also the impact of that as well. You know, I'm not sure where Ms. Rock stands on that or whatever, but I mean, the impact of, you know, you're taking kids out of a classroom right now. How do you decide who comes out? How do you, those type of things. Your kid's in that classroom, okay? Now we tell you, you're going to take your kid out to give to a teacher that's going to teach here maybe for 1 year.
I thought about that whenever that was said. But, and I guess my question there is, how did it get this far along with 30 kids in each class? I wish
You
that.
have 3 classes, 28's the cap, that means you're over capped to 6 students at that grade level. Your policy says in your allocations, not until you're over capped to 12 do you start to put an additional teacher there. That's why there's not an additional, there's 3 classrooms, it's 2 over.
Now, do those classrooms have assistants in them?
Probably not.
Is that something would that be of help?
Well, you heard, and I think you heard tonight, and something that I would support across the board with all of them. District-wide, you've heard you need some special ed instructional resources. They need help in SPED across the district. I think you heard probably every elementary principal, and I think virtually everyone's talked about the disciplinary needs and the things, the needs of the kids and dealing with those students. I think the second thing that I'm going to give a recommendation for, you know, nobody's asked, but I'm going to give it to you, is the 4th grade fondness and smells. You did the K-3, you saw improvement in ELA scores. We did it K through 3. I think we're ready to move into that at the 4th grade now, and possibly even into the 5th and 6th. I think that it's starting to make some implications for the improvements that Mr. Mounts is seeing at the 5th and 6th, because you're getting students now.
And going along with what Mr. Chris is saying, and these are just my thoughts. I mean, I don't think that those are things that we as a board need to hash out. I think we need to come up with a money figure, and then they over there are saying, well, this is what I need here, and this is what I need here, instead of us sitting there saying, let's give this to here, let's give this to here, and we earmark it just for that certain thing. I think, you know, we've got to allow schools to get exactly what they need, and that comes through the funding. And I would much rather, and it's just my opinion, much rather put a money amount saying this is what we're going to reinvest back into schools out of contingency. And these guys have got to decide what is the best way for that to go about. I mean, I would hate to miss the mark of saying, okay, I'm going to give you a teacher's aid. And somebody says, well, I don't really want a teacher's aid, but you know, I'd rather have this. So I think those are some questions that we have to decide on.
I agree with Mr. Peridot that, you know, in terms of the specifics, certainly we'll want to review that, but, you know, we're using the team analogy, you know, as the board, we kind of represent the owners, which is the taxpayers in the community, but the coach is our superintendent. So, I mean, from my perspective, he knows how the whole puzzle is going to fit together. And I would like to look to Mr. Christie to have him review the list and see how the whole thing fits together. Let's say we've got a quarter of $2 million more that we could spend before we really get nervous about the contingency funds. Looking at a 1 to 2 year time frame on that, what do you think makes the most sense for the whole puzzle? That'll be the question I'll be looking to you for. But obviously I'm very conservative about things, but I'm coming around to being open to certainly more investment in that area. And if it's investment in educational things that are going to directly impact our students out of the general fund, I'm extremely open to that. So I guess to summarize, I'll be looking to you, Mr. Christie, as to, you know, say, you know, you're the coach, what do you think we ought to do in terms of allocating resources? And even come up with the amount, because I don't just say we're going to invest $300,000. Obviously, if we spend $300 there, at $300 we can't spend in another area that you think we might need it next spring or next fall or something like that. So you could certainly see a much better total picture than we can, and also could see the details better than I can. That's my perspective.
Well, I do think we do have plenty of money to put back into this. I think what we have to decide on is how much for immediate impact, and then how much do we need to put in the budget. I mean, we could go right now and not have any problems with our contingency and put $3 million right back in these schools right now. We can do that and not even have a problem with our contingency. But did you spend $3 million in 1 year, and what do we get out of it? I think that's what we've got to decide. Can we spend less and then prepare more for when our budget comes around, and how are we going to do it then? I mean, yeah, we could do probably everything that's on these lists that these people have this year, but just this year. But, you know, that's the hard part about all this, is that what can we do to impact right now that would be of great help, and then how can we continue the discussion going all the way through budget time of what are we going to do for the rest of the time that's going to have this kind of impact. And all of those are, you know, they have to make the decisions on how it's going to be done. We just have to make the decision on how much we are willing to invest. And that could be different for some. That may be $15,000 for Strode. It may be $25,000 for Justice. Or, you know, I mean, those are some of the things that you have to, you know, that we have to consider. That, you know, just because give them 115 doesn't mean that everybody needs 15. We've got to think about, you know, what the needs are. Now, if you start getting, you know, if you start getting 15,000 here and 150 here, I mean, that's, you know, that's some issues that are a lot stronger than that, but I don't think we should get in big discussions about this school got $10,000 more than this school. You know, what do you need right now? And those are things that they have to decide right now. What they're sitting there thinking, well, how much are we going to get? I mean, that's because there are a lot of needs out there. I mean, you heard that tonight. There are a lot of needs, and there always are going to be a lot of needs. We just have to decide, you know, what are we willing for a one-time investment that we think they can make some sort of impact
Overall.
overall.
So we're looking at a lump sum and then let the coach break it down.
Right.
So-
And,
Okay.
and, you know, if you're not prepared to look at a lump sum tonight, then, you know, like I said, you know, we can do a special meeting coming up in November again as well, and have something presented back just a little bit more to us. But I don't know. I mean, all of us have to have a figure in mind of how much are we willing to put out in schools. And you know, personally myself, you know, I think we can do $500,000, and it's not going to really have that much of an effect on our contingency. But, you know, we want to make sure it's an effective $500,000 because it's a one-time shot. I mean,
Will that address most of the needs they talked about?
It would certainly go a long way. Now, when you start talking technology, and you heard the conversations about technology, if you spent the $2 million that's on that list tonight, when we come back next month, there'd be another list for $2 million. That's just education. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
There's always something. Technology is that way. You know, I don't know. You've heard from principals. You've heard several principals have made investments in their schools. They've got skin in the game. Other principals are dependent solely on the board support to do that. So technology is always something that we're continuously working on. Yeah, I think that $500,000 would go a long way in meeting a lot of the needs that's been discussed here tonight.
And I think the other counsel we need is from Ms. Ellis in terms of trying to project out another chess move ahead to the next year. Obviously, we're running a $2 million deficit this year. There's some one-time oddities in that $2 million. So she could take the back of an envelope and try to project what next year might look like. Are we gonna, she thinks there's a reasonable chance, well, if we assume a 4% increase and then the other components, you know, is that gonna be an even budget? Or are we gonna lose $1 million in next year just on the back of the envelope? Because I mean, that's a pretty important thing to know where's that curve going? Because potentially we need to reserve part of our.
And we can do some of that with the understanding this is a budget year in the legislature, and that seat could change, and that everything that we've counted on or figured at this point could get thrown a huge curve. So
Well, like I said, it's still the back of the envelope, but
Yeah.
you know, I think we need to have some direction, because if that envelope inside it said we're gonna lose $2 million in 2021 and another $2 million the next year, which I don't think we are, well, that'd be quite a pickle, and we'd have to look at all this completely differently. So that would be information I'd love to hear from her before we commit a substantial amount. Now, the 500,000, quite frankly, to invest 500,000 in things that are going to directly impact our students, that doesn't make me too nervous. What's in that 500,000 is something we need to make sure we're doing that correctly. Now the $3 million, that does make me nervous.
I'm just saying that you could do it, but I don't think that's a proper thing to do. I'm just saying, if we all of a sudden decide to do $3 million in 1 year, and you never could come back to that. I think, you know, we've got to put some of it back onto principals and central office people of, you know, let's work hard between now and May to figure out what do we need out of this budget. You know, and it may be making some hard decisions that way about, you know, what do we want to cut out? What do we want to add to it? You know, those type of things I think we've got to do. But I think, you know, what I would like to get across here right now is that they have been given their test scores. And I know as a principal, you pick that up and you say, well, why was this way? Because we felt like we did this. What do we need to do different right here? And then if we can have something there at that time that we know that's going to impact that school, whether it's, dealing with disabilities at that time, or whether it's dealing with writing, or if it's class size, whatever that is, what's going to have the impact? I can certainly see if you've got 30 in 3 classrooms, that a reduced class size or more help there could have an impact on what those test scores are the other way. But then you could have an impact on, if you've got somebody there to deal with some of the emotional disabilities. In other words, you're having a teacher being distracted because there are things going on in their classroom that they have to take away from it. That could have an impact on what happens, in the classroom. I mean, a new program, they talked about the read aloud program for 4th grade. That could have an impact on where we're going. Writing coaches that we brought up, that could have an impact. These people have to decide where they can get the most bang for their buck, and then we have to decide, is it worthy of this amount, or this amount? That's where we have to come to. And I'm not sure, that we have enough information tonight that we could really even say that, because the needs are great. And they're going to have to be defined a little bit more. And these principals act just exactly the way I'm a principal. There's only so much piece of the pie, you got to fight to get your piece. And that's kind of, what we're doing. And I appreciate those kind of efforts, because you do want the most, because everything that they've got on these things could have an impact somewhere.
When you divide this money, would you consider Phoenix as part of that too?
Well, I think, those have got to be part of the discussions. What do you need? Now, those, Phoenix preschool are funded just a little bit different. So I think, we've got to, say, well, what have you got there? What are you doing? I know a lot of at Phoenix, we're trying to get kids graduated. You're doing Apex programs and things like that. Is that sufficient to what we got at Phoenix? Is what we have at Phoenix, is that going to keep the graduation rate up? Because that's a big part of where we are, is our graduation rate is really good. But because we service kids there, that helps us a great deal with our graduation rate. So what else do you put there? Do you need more stuff there? Is that being successful, not being successful? Then you go back to the high school, how do you make sure those kids there are being serviced the way that they should be, to get them through the 4 years in high school, to keep the graduation rate and the transition rate. And we got a very good transition rate as well. I mean, and I think that goes back to having, our area tech right there in the building, and being able to do that, and the kids passing the tests that they do there. So.
Again, to summarize my feelings, I'd be open to investing $500,000, and I'd want to look to the superintendent,
Come back.
to look at the whole,
What would be included.
to look at the whole puzzle and say, here's what I think we would get the biggest bang for that $500,000. Do you all
I agree.
have thoughts on that?
I agree too, but if there's, as you start looking at, dividing up 500,000, if there's something that, we did, the 500,000 doesn't include, that we really need, I would venture to come back and say you need another 50,000 or 75,000 because of a certain thing, a certain program. I would, I would venture to come back, but I'm okay with 500,000 to start. Yeah.
So we want to kind of look at that direction of giving Mr. Christie a directive of sitting down with these people and talking these through, giving principals time to go talk to site base and their people within their school, of where they're going to have the most impact. I don't know. I mean, again, that's another piece of the pie, and I'm sure, there can be some pretty interesting discussions between principals about who gets the most of that pie. I mean, what it is, but somebody has to make a decision somewhere. This is, and sell somebody on the impact of where that money should go.
And it could be, Mr. Christie, as you start going down this path, you think, well, it's kind of a complicated discussion, but you know what? I really would love to have 200,000 at the next meeting, and then I'll get back to you on the next 300,000, because I might want to take a month or two to think about that. But there are things that I want, instead of instead of delaying the whole process, process 2 months to research, to the greatest extent possible, it could be you want to do it in phases, say, I got immediate money I want right now. And would really, I think, help out for the remainder of the school year. So I'll throw that out as another concept you cogitate on. Cogitate. That's 2 sentences.
Yeah, I don't think the 500,000 will encompass everything everyone's asking for, but it should be able to accommodate 1 or 2 specifics for each one. Maybe two requests from each school.
I think it can have an impact. I think that can have an impact, and that's what we're looking for right now. Again, this is reactionary money, I guess. In other words, these are our scores. This is what I think we can do to bring us out of this, and therefore we're going to do it. Now they're going through discussions about things that they want for next year, and that's a long discussion. But hopefully, by the time May comes around, that we've got some direction from them as well about how to budget at that time. So are we good at looking at, a November meeting? And
Got a November meeting on me.
that 11th through the 15th, I kind of looked at that as dates right there, somewhere in there. 12th is on Tuesday.
That extra meeting?
That's not the next meeting. I'm talking about having a
Yeah.
special meeting or work session or whatever. I mean, special if we want to go ahead and take action on it that week, or we just want to have a work session and talk about it that night and then approve it the next week at the regular board meeting.
I will be out of town on Thursday and Friday, the 7th and 8th, and then also on Monday, the 11th.
Yeah, I'm out all next week, so I won't be here next week. That's what I was saying, the 11th through the 15th.
I'll be back.
And I kind of threw those dates out to a couple of people, and they were okay with them, but,
So maybe
you
on
guys.
Tuesday, the 12th,
I can't do the 12th.
13th.
I can do the 13th.
So are we not?
You do the 14th.
Are we gonna wait to make a decision then, or are we?
Well, it just depends. I mean, we could do just a work session right there and just have a discussion of what Mr. Christie can bring that in. Principals maybe can come in and discuss those things and not take action that night, but we can come up with a pretty good plan of what we want to do the following week at the board meeting. So I'll take whatever direction that the board wants with that. Sometimes it's good to sit and just discuss things. Sometimes it's good to go ahead and take action. So.
Can we not just do a special meeting? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to take action anyway.
Yeah, that gives us the flexibility to go either way on it.
Yeah.
I would lean toward that.
You want to do it.
And that second week looks good, because the first week, that's next week.
Yeah.
13th.
We'll look on Wednesday, the 13th. Is that what we're looking at then? Wednesday, the 13th? Is that, sounds okay to you where you can be?
There's a week, and I've got a week in there to meet the principals and work through this, and then that gives me a day when I come back to get it prepared to present to you all, and I'll have, if you need, we'll talk.
What's Thursday look like? Ashley?
Thursday I can do too.
Well, we can bump it the next week.
Thursday?
Yeah, I
No,
could-
that's our board meeting.
Thursday, the 14th?
I'm open Thursday, the
That'd be
14th.
better.
We could bump it to the next week too, do 2 back to back. It just seemed like if this might be a lot just to add on to the regular meeting. But we don't want to push you into a time frame that you're not comfortable with. Hate to have you just rush out there and say, well, this daggum guys, they maybe throw this together.
They're already setting appointments up right now,
So do we move
14th
from
14th
Wednesday
works
to
better for
Thursday?
you?
so work better for me.
14th? Okay.
We can have it.
Probably, since we keep changing this stupid thing.
All right,
6:30.
6:30? Good,
Yeah.
6:30.
Yep.
So just so I'm clear, so the direction is for Mr. Christie to go and meet with principals of each school to look at dividing up $500,000? Is that
Well,
what we're looking
I
at?
think, I think we're throwing that figure out there that figure doesn't scare us.
Targeted
I
amount.
think that's kind of what we're looking at. I mean, if they, by some unknown chance, they come in at 250, we're okay with that too. But I'm just saying, and of course, I mean, there'd be a lot of, that's a lot of, that sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but as you can see by the request that you have here, there's a lot of different things that can happen with that money, and they're gonna have to sell it to central office people as well, and try to come up with the best plan for impact for this year for schools. I mean, that's what we're looking at, impact for this year. We're good?
So we're
Okay.
putting out maybe 500,000,
Right.
but if he comes back and says, oh, well,
More or
600
less.
would
More or
get
less.
everything we've asked for, then we
Right.
can
Yeah.
address that then.
Yeah,
Okay,
Or if he says 250,
right.
yeah,
Okay,
all right,
good.
all right. All right, item number 5, consider approval for board members and superintendent to attend KSBA Winter Symposium, November 22nd through 23rd, 2019, at the Louisville Marriott downtown. I have a motion for that, or
I'll
anybody?
make that motion.
Motion by Ms.
I'll second.
Hughes, second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, item number 6 was an item that we tabled from the last time, was considered approval of board funding of athletic uniforms, $115,000. Band instruments, equipment replacements, $150,000. And I think most of us probably got a list from Mr. Payne, I think, about some of the needs. And again, you can tell that, sometimes the money that we put out here don't touch what we really want to happen. The athletic uniforms, if we want to do that, I just thought, that moving into our new facilities, and as much as we relied on booster clubs over the past few years, this was a good opportunity to give them a little bit of a break. And the 115 is not an exact number, just like the 160 or the 150 for band. I mean, obviously he has a lot of things there, so I'll just open that up for discussion.
Well, Mr. Payne has put together, extensive information for us, which I appreciate very much. Goes to show the need for the band. I don't see that on the uniforms. I don't recall getting any information other than a couple of columns of when the athletic teams were up for rotation. I requested more information on that. I haven't received that yet. But as far as the band goes, I appreciate him sending the information and the rationale behind that.
On the uniforms also, the dollars and when it would spend, I was a little confused on it. I was looking at the chart that we had, and there's 4 teams that are potentially up for renewal this year. I guess soccer's already done, and cross country, it's probably too late to get them new uniforms. So that's, for this upcoming year we're looking at right now, if we did this rotation, we're probably only looking at track and field and, I guess, cheer. Am I understanding that right?
And they probably already, I'm not,
Track's been looking at them.
Yeah.
They've not made any decisions. The track,
Uh-huh.
looking at them. They're the ones probably that's gonna have to have something. I mean, they've never had any. Our track team's 6'12". First ranked 6'13".
about 100 kids that participate
Totally,
in track.
okay.
Do we know a cost on the uniforms for track?
Not till they would pick something out.
Track uniforms, the estimate I got on that for a track uniform is $71.25. That's what I was given.
What does that include?
Well, I would assume that it's the top and the bottom.
Does it have cardinals on it? Does it have anything?
I mean, that's for a uniform. I mean,
I support
that
tops
would
and
just be-
bottoms.
Tops, yeah, I don't want them coming topless, so.
I mean,
I don't want them coming bottomless either.
Yeah, we're talking about, this is what I'm saying, is that all this proposal that I was putting out there, and if the board doesn't want to do it, and we push this thing around for 3 months, I'm trying to help out booster clubs because I have seen the work that booster clubs do. I have seen booster clubs have to go out and raise money for uniforms. This gives everybody an opportunity to get the next uniform. Booster club does not have to worry about that. Everybody has to have a uniform sometime or another. Everybody has to have a uniform at least every 4 years. I think we're a 4-year rotation, aren't we, Mr. Bowling?
Yes.
This was just my way of saying thanks because we have the opportunity to do it. If, you know, I don't care if the board does not want to do it, that is perfectly fine with me. I'm just saying this was a great opportunity because we have the funding to be able to help booster clubs out at this time. I mean, you're looking at football uniforms right at $43,000, soccer uniforms $7,000, volleyball $3,000. These are money that people have to raise to make sure. Now, if in the uniforms that I've been given here, what I've been told is about a mid-range uniform. Okay, well, if we give the football team, if we went to the booster club and said, all right, we're going to buy 100 or 200 uniforms for the football team, and we're going to give you $215 a piece. And they say, well, the best uniforms out there is $220 a piece. Well, if they can't come up with the other $5, that's what the boosters are all about. That's what the name says, booster. So you're going to provide this for them. If you don't, you know, if it doesn't match, you know, you're talking about, you know, what does it have on the uniform? Well, $71.25 buys you a card on something else, but they want something else on it. It costs you $75. Well, your booster club's got to come up with $4.75 or whatever. So, you know, again, that was my only intention when I first proposed this, is thank you, booster clubs, for what you have done. Same way with the band. Thank you, band, for what you have done, but we want to try to provide a little bit more for you. I think last year the band, we probably gave over $150,000 to the band last year, proposing another $150,000 this year. So, you know, and I think that gets them a lot further along their lines. As you can tell, there's always needs. I mean, we could go to every team out there and ask every team to give me your needs, and every one of them could come up with a proposal for each one of these things. All this is just uniforms, and something that they have to have. If we're going to provide the team, I feel like we ought to provide the uniform. But if we don't want to, then that's fine, and we can just move on.
So if we try to break it down to just this fiscal year that we're in right now, 'cause I'm not sure it makes sense to commit now to buying football uniforms in 2022. Are we,
I mean, we're just talking about the rotation. When the rotation comes in, whenever the next rotation is up, that this fund would provide for that.
so we would potentially be approving the concept of the board funding the
Exactly,
rotation.
exactly.
Not saying football young men
Because,
spend $43,000
You know,
this year.
and as it's been brought up before, you know, the board can come in next year with a new board and saying, you know, I don't want to spend money on uniforms right there, let's put this money back somewhere else. That's, you know, that's always possible. All I'm just throwing a proposal out there to try to help out the school and the booster club, because both of those are big expenses for both of those entities there.
So how's this happen? We set aside that money for uniforms. So does the team come to the principal or to us, or who
They
would
do, just
say-
like they always
They've got a
do.
rotation, they've got
They
a
have a
rotation,
rotation.
each knows what their year is for new uniforms right
Okay.
now. They all know when their year for uniforms is.
So we would be saying possibly that we support as the board the concept of the board funding uniforms on a 4-year
Exactly.
cycle. That would be like the first half of it, and then the second half would be to specifically identify what's coming up for this year and say, now, identify what the number is for cheer and track and field.
So those are the two that we
Because-
have up.
That's the way I look at it.
Okay.
You know, and I don't know, and I didn't, when I'm doing mine here, you know, I didn't have cheer on here. What I was trying to address are Title IX issues. Now, I don't know that, used to be cheer did not fall within Title IX. Now, I don't know whether it does now or not, because, you know, it doesn't fall. And that's what, you know, in uniforms where you get in trouble with Title IX of having something for somebody, not for somebody else. And it does, I think the baseball person talked about the difficulty of trying to raise the money to be able to do it. And, basically, you do have to make sure that your girls' teams are taken care of that time, even though I think now their booster clubs are pretty well established and they do pretty well. But it just ensures that that's one aspect of Title IX that you don't have to worry about. And that's what I was thinking about when I was looking at these uniforms.
So, I guess I misunderstood a little bit about the uniforms. I mean, being a previous booster officer, I know how hard it is to raise funds, buy uniforms, especially for a large group of young men. And it is expensive. I do think that as a board, we probably should provide uniforms for our teams, take that away from, the boosters have to provide that type of, that large amount of money, every 4 years. I guess what I would want to see, it sounds like are we adopting a policy or procedure that we're going to do this now? I mean, or, because, so that all the athletic teams know that we would be doing this? And would the board need to do this again in another 4 years?
Well, I think obviously you make a policy, you'd have to follow your policy. I'm just asking, what I'm doing is this time right now, because of the situation we have with new facilities and, in appreciation for what everything has been done by booster clubs, this is a little bit of relief for them as well. I do believe that if you're going to put a team out on the field, that the school system should pay for the uniform. Now, that doesn't mean that the school system pays for the highest uniform. You can get a stock uniform, and you can say it's $100 for a stock uniform, but if you want a really nice uniform, it's $115. Well, that's where the booster club comes in. And I just believe that a school system, if you're going to put a team out there on the field, then you are to provide all the necessities for that team. Now, that's my feeling.
Speaking of past booster experience, obviously I was a past member of the band boosters, and I know when I was on the band booster board, we spent a pretty sizable amount of money on uniforms for the band. So, do we bring that into this mix also? Because that's
Again, my issues are Title IX, and that would fall within athletics is there. And band on the other side, like I said, on the other side, being a curriculum as well as that, I mean, the money that we're putting into there. Now, if they wanted to use that money for uniforms, I guess we could talk about that. But I was saying, like I said, within the band, we put, quite a bit of money in last year. We're looking at putting quite a bit of money in again this year.
150, yeah.
So, and I'm sure that if you're a band booster and you don't have to spend $150,000 on instrument replacement, then that gives you $150,000 to help you buy uniforms.
So this 115 would be for every year?
No.
Just for
That's
this year,
that's
just a
That's a
one-time thing?
4-year commitment.
Okay.
For $115,000, not $115,000 a year, but like $25,000, $26,000 a year, whatever. But some years going to be more. I mean, again, obviously a track uniform, it's not going to cost you as much as a football uniform.
Gotcha, okay.
So that's my thoughts on that.
And back to the band, I thought we just did $75,000 last year. I was looking at the minutes from last year.
Well, I think we did $75,000 there. I think we put in a new band stand thing in there with that.
I think it's previous year.
Title III money, about $35,000. Title III money, I think, band was allowed. Title IV money that went, that the band was allowed to spend in there. And again, I don't care about the money. I mean, let's get it where it's at. Obviously, what the band did the last 2 weekends out there with the competition was absolutely fantastic and exactly the way we need that facility to be ran. And obviously, they need the help. They've asked for the help. Just trying to put a little bit more in there, and that's something that that's a showcase of our community. So.
But I want to front run address the issue that if we said we're going to get uniforms for these guys because we want to help the boosters, and the band boosters might say, well, Well, why not you helping us with our uniforms? 'Cause
I
that's a
mean, we
pretty
could,
big
we could
number.
do that the other way around, so basketball team, we're not gonna buy you any uniforms, but we're gonna buy everything else, so your booster club's gonna have to buy. I mean, to me, it's like 6 of one, half a dozen the other. I mean, I don't know what band uniforms cost, but if we wanna give $150,000 for band uniforms, we can do that as well. But you don't get the $150,000 for the instrument replacement. I mean, some people would argue that an instrument's like a baseball glove. It's your instrument, you buy it. So, I mean, those are things you have to look at, but I think, if you want to have a strong program, you're gonna have to know that there's a lot of kids involved in band that can't afford it. So therefore, we're filling in for that and making sure that we have a strong band because we're gonna do the instruments.
So, on this list that was provided to us, I can't even remember where it came from, cheer's on here as a group that is in the uniform rotation this year. So, I've gotten confused whether that is a group that's in the rotation or not. Are they up for, does anyone know?
I don't know how they do cheer now. When I was a principal, they bought uniforms every year. But they don't fall in the Title IX of they can only get a uniform every year. If it's still the way it used to be, cheerleaders, it doesn't make any difference how much money it's spent on them. That doesn't fall into the Title IX category. And I could be wrong. I don't know, Mr. Thomas, if you know any more.
No,
But
it's-
it used to never fall within the Title IX issues, and that's what you're concerned with. That's why you have a rotation, just to make sure that everybody's getting something at that time and that both your boys and girls sports are being treated fairly.
They're not in Title IX, but they are in our uniform rotation. We do.
They only get a uniform every 4 years?
Well, I'm not saying.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is that, that's the way the rotation should be, is that you only get them every 4 years. But the school offers them up some money every 4 years. That's what you're saying?
That's what I'm
Okay,
Well,
okay.
Mr. Boland,
We make a contribution every 4 years.
is this their year?
To my
If
knowledge.
it's on that rotation, that you
Okay.
can copy of the rotation, and that's.
Do we have any idea?
But I'm
what
sure
that
they
is?
probably already bought uniforms this year, haven't they?
I'm not sure if they have
I
Well,
don't
they've
know.
been
Maybe
cheering at all the
basketball,
games.
I don't know.
I don't know what they got. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's different for winter
No.
or fall, I don't know.
Have they bought, have you done anything with cheer this year so far?
We have not yet,
So it's still to come.
Mr. Christie, do you have any thoughts on this topic, sir?
I appreciate what Mr. Parado's doing, and I agree with him. The boosters are the backbone of our sports programs. I mean, they're the backbone. And we couldn't do what we do without them. So anything that you do is going to be a tremendous help to them. If any amount that you give them, that frees up that amount that they have to use on something else. And I think if you're going to do something, it should be on like a 4-year rotation and not put it all out there at once, because it's like your computers. If you put it out there and you buy everybody all new uniforms at one time, now you have no rotation. Now 4 years from now, you got them all to do again. So I like the idea of it being spread out over a 4-year rotation. I think probably the prices that you got, our coaches are going to have a little more expensive taste than that for the kids. They'll want something probably that has more GRC, Cardinal stuff on there that's going to cost more. But there again, you go back to, just like he was saying, if you put out, it's you give $100 uniform and they want to spend $110, then they've saved $100 per uniform. So that's a tremendous savings for them and much easier for them to do. But then also with the uniforms and with their agreement with their sports vendor, you also take into consideration some stuff that's going to follow. The money that the school puts into the uniform rotation doesn't always even cover the cost of the uniform. And you've got all the supplemental things that has to be switched over, like your carry bags, your warm-ups, your other stuff that go with it. But that's where the boosters kind of come in on that too. So the uniforms is what the school provides.
Do we want to go forward on this, or do we just want to move ahead and adjourn?
Is there a specific dollar amount just for this year that we should consider?
Well, your chair's probably gonna be somewhere around 8,000. Your, what do you have for track? You had,
Track, I've got 80 uniforms.
it'll be,
At 71, that's 57, so you're right around 6,000 again.
it'll be 6 to 8 for track, because I think, how many did you have on the track, did you figure?
I got 80.
Okay,
80
that's
for track.
close.
So I don't
He-
know
he
what- I
said-
don't-
He said 100, so.
I don't
you're
know what they
talking-
have, and I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
going.
I don't know that you would do uniforms for all the 100 that he has, because there are 612, it's 612 tracks, so.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just like, normally, like for basketball, you buy 15 uniforms for your varsity and things get passed down. That's normally the way
Yes.
that things
Yes.
go. So, I mean, and I'm assuming the same way,
Not all
baseball,
100,
softball,
exactly.
everything else the same.
Not all
Is that-
100 of those tracks are
That you've got
varsity.
a uniform that a varsity will wear for 4 years, but a JV may wear for 4 years after that. So
Yeah.
about 8 years use out of a uniform is what you're looking at.
Cross country?
That's included in the
I just
track.
include that in the
Oh, I'm
track
sorry.
as well.
Track and field, cross country.
So,
And then we have tennis, or they're not up there yet.
Yeah, I've got tennis, $75 per
I
uniform.
don't see them on here.
So,
It's on here.
So if we've got 8,000, 8,000, 16, 7, that's 23,000 for this 19, 20? For this current fiscal year we're in?
If that's you're using comparative numbers, I
mean, yeah, again, I'm
that's
just,
what they had done about.
Well, I'm just sort of wandering down a path of trying to focus this of, is a proposal that we would allocate 20 or 25,000 or something from contingency money to the high school, and I guess also at RDC to be able to use for uniforms? Is that a path we're wandering down to?
I would think that she would just put this under a column or something, $115,000, and then it just goes on your budget for the next
It
year.
would
What
be
you
a
have
tie- it
left
would be a
over,
line
and then
item
if you
of-
want to take it off the budget, then you take it off the budget.
It could be a line item in the budget of
You get
uniform.
$115,000 this year. If you spent $15,000 next year, it would carry over $100,000 in that budget, and then you just go until that line item left out.
Well, it seemed like we need to focus how much, because we don't want to spend the whole 115 this year.
No, that's why you got the rotation, because the rotation list is going to drive you. If you buy more than what's on the rotation list, then you're going.
If you
against
bought
your
one that's not on the
bottom line.
rotation this year, then they would come off next year's rotation.
So for the year we're sitting in right now is what I'm thinking about.
I'm not looking at the rotation, but I know the track and cheer, boys soccer was in there, that's done at this point, but, so they would come at the end of the 4 years now to get another one, in this amount.
So-
You've got them figured in.
Track is 8, cheer is 8, that's 16,000. If we just want to look at just this year,
You have the rotation, who else is on, is there anyone else in the rotation besides boys soccer?
no, that's all that's listed.
Bo, do you know anybody besides boys soccer, cheer, and track that's on the rotation for this year?
Yeah,
I
what's
don't
that?
Not that I know of.
I don't have the rotation in front of me.
Is tennis on your rotation?
Tennis and golf are usually what we call consumables. So we'll help them give them money, but usually they buy a pair of shorts and polo that doesn't carry on.
They keep it. They keep
Yeah,
it.
Here it is.
That's right.
Okay, guys, just
I'd be
Just
open to
move on.
allocating $16,000 of contingency fund money to, as an allocation for uniforms under the 4-year rotation cycle as provided to us previously.
going to make that form of a motion.
It might stand tidying up a little bit. I would be happy to, if anyone wanted to tidy that up or fine tune it some.
Are you going to include anything for the band in that?
I thought we would just take it one piece at a time. I didn't want to
Yeah.
link them together, because there might be two things I don't want to. Anyone else along those lines you want to fine tune those, that meandering of wording of mine? Sorry, Mrs.
You're just moving to approve $16,000 for the purchase of athletic uniforms for the rotation, that's in the rotation schedule, basically.
That's probably a more precise way to put it, yes.
Approval of $16,000 for athletic uniforms. That's within the high school rotation schedule. So we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Heisel. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, board chair opposes, passes 4-1. All right, instruments or equipment replacements, $150,000 for the band. Have any discussion on this? I mean, it's obviously it's a needed expense.
They have such enormous needs, it's scary the list that Mr. Payne put together. Mr. Christie, there I am, going to come back to you since you have the perspective on it. Do you have any thoughts on this? I didn't mean to jump
No,
on
you're
you.
fine,
I
you're
had
fine.
comments, I'm sorry. Or didn't mean to jump on you ladies either.
No, in the packet that you got from Mr. Payne, he's also proposed a replacement cycle in there, 3 options on a replacement cycle, a 10-year, a 15-year, and a 20-year. That if you were interested in going to a certain amount, budgeted a certain amount each year, that would be the replacement.
You're getting back into the same thing we just talked about, the
Yeah.
uniforms.
Yeah, might just take it the year that we have, just see where we are in the future.
So this 150, does it include RDC? Because in RDC's request that just went over a little bit ago, actually had,
Well, and Baker.
And Baker.
and Baker, had that in. So
And,
it's-
yeah, and how does it work with the hand down also? Because I think they've done that in the past. I didn't mean to jump
No,
on
Phil.
your comments either.
And that's normally the way I've seen it in the past, that they.
When you did the purchase of instruments the last time, I think those instruments that you gave money to, those that were replaced, those that were still usable, went to the middle school, intermediate.
You probably had conversations with, with the folks involved. I mean, is 150 a number you're comfortable with, or should be 100, and then we allocate
I've not
something
had
specific to RDC
conversations
and
with
Baker?
Mr. Payne
or
on
$75?
$150,000. This was the amount that was kind of with the uniforms, it was an amount that I think that Parrott, I don't know that for that $150,000, I do not have a list of that will buy this many instruments or these particular instruments, or if that's split, would be split between, I've not had that conversation with Mr.
Then
Payne.
I suppose realistically, that begs the question that, I know they've got one more contest, but in terms of winter band the fall band season, that's just about over. I don't know what needs they would have on a competition basis in the
I think there's
winter.
been money already allocated to them for that competition.
And I don't know what needs they might have more of an academic basis, because there's band and orchestra. I think last year 75,000 was band and orchestra, because certainly, it moves indoor, they've got instruments for concerts there too. And then in addition to being GRC, again, is there anything specifically that should be directed to RDC or Baker to help them with more, they don't have competition needs, but they have academic, daily classroom needs.
Yeah,
Does that
also
fall
on
under
the,
Baker?
on the other
Yeah.
proposal that I put together was $100,000 for GRC, and it did include music and orchestra in there as well. That was the other proposal. That was why this was separate from that.
Hello, Mr. Mounts.
Um,
Do you mind if
On my
I ask Mr. Mounts a
proposal-
question?
I did include 30,000 for the band. I spoke with Mr. Lee. He said he would give you an itemized list of what that would entail.
it is probably 100% toward instruments. The same for Mrs. Rohr. Baker actually has the largest band in the county. I can't speak to orchestra. We have about 100, don't quote me on it, it's in that proposal, about 160 kids in band, maybe 120, somewhere in there, I can't, 120, 160, and then orchestra, about 100 kids. And in speaking to them, they said 30,000 would go a long way for both band and then 30 for orchestra also. And that was my question when I saw that agenda item, was the 150, does that include RDC and Baker? That was, I didn't know, so I just kept it in my proposal.
Because it sounds like they have more students in band than the high school has in band. Am I wrong on that?
No, we do.
Yeah, you have more students in band. So why would GRC need more money than you?
Honestly, I can't speak to it. I don't know the details of instrument
Okay.
costs and things like that. I just spoke to my band director, and we had that question because we had heard that figure.
Yeah.
Does that include RDC and Baker, or do we need to come up with a separate figure? And I said, Mr. Leedy, what would be that number? He said 30,000, and he said he would give an itemized list. If it got that far in discussion, he'd be happy to do that.
Because I feel like I'm missing something.
Well, typically at the Baker level, the kids are starting out with round instruments anyway. And as they progress, we lose some kids through middle school, up to high school. When we get to the high school level, the instruments are bigger and more professional type instruments, and they cost more money.
Okay. Makes sense.
I mean, that would be the same even if you went to uniforms.
Yeah.
You got 3 teams playing on the junior high level. You're gonna have more people playing basketball there than you do at the high school. I mean, that's just, I think, me, I'm a high school guy. I think you showcase the high school.
I'm just looking at then the current fiscal year that we're in. They might have needs to supply, to be able to march with next fall, but we potentially could address that in the spring as we get a little closer to it. If they're, I'm trying to fish around, are there immediate needs that would help the academic aspect of GRC, of the instruments they might need for the rest of the school year, and then certainly Baker and RDC. Just trying to take this a piece at a time. I can't talk one way, said I don't want to get uniforms for 2 years from now, and then say I want to get band needs for 2 years from now. To be consistent, I want to say, what do we need for this year that we're in right now?
The only thing I'll speak right quick. The only thing my concern is, I don't know that much about band and orchestra, but I think we got to be cautious. Concerned a little bit about orchestra. I mean, they're a good program, but their needs are pretty, the cello's pretty expensive. Somewhere along the way, we need to think about it a little bit.
And again, that was in the other proposal, orchestra.
Because this line item says band.
I'm talking about in the proposal that I gave out 3 months ago that said, to include orchestra music within that. So, but this is band.
But yeah, I was wondering on this.
Mr. Payne had came and has asked for this for 2 years, and, guys, again, just decide, do you want to spend the money, you don't want to spend the money? We're spending way, way too much time on this issue. I mean, just, do we want to, or do we not want to?
Does line item 6 allow us to allocate money for orchestra equipment? I don't know what.
We can
band
add it up
instruments
any way in
applies.
your motion, you can add it up any way that you want to. I'm
Because
just
it's a
not
special
aware
meeting, I don't wanna-
of orchestra. This says band instruments is what it says, so equipment replacement.
If I can say one thing, these are needs that we do need now. The concert season's coming up and those instruments are needed. We need it for our basketball games. They're interchangeable. Some of the instruments aren't. We use them only for concert, but a lot of them we use on the field. Marching season is almost over, but we got concert season coming up. We got all state editions. We've got all our different tryouts that the kids use school and instrument school.
So the instruments we would replace with this, those would be sent down to other schools, or are they?
Typically,
Okay.
if they're in still good
Still good
enough
shape.
shape, we share them with RDC and Baylor.
We have immediate potential need for instruments for the pep band in terms of a push-down program. And what else is in this fiscal year?
So we've got basketball season coming up for the pep band.
Yep.
We've got the All-State Edition. You've got concert season. They also, sometimes they do a hit with the spring play. They'll have the band play some of that during the play. A lot of potential things for the bands to still be doing stuff, new instruments, but
Mr. Christie, if I threw out a proposal of allocating $75,000 this year just for band equipment, what's your reaction to that proposal?
I would work with Mr. Payne and Mr. Bowen to come up with an itemized list of what $75,000 would buy.
Could it potentially be integrated, since this is not limited just to the high school? Could you work together with the principals of the other schools to see what some immediate needs might be in terms of how the hand down might work? Because it could be, you all might decide in your best judgment, the 75 would work best at the high school, and then the pass down would accomplish the other needs. Or you might say, well, we need to take 50 for the high school and then put 25 to another school.
I would be glad to sit down, be happy to sit down with both band directors and chorus, not chorus, I'm sorry, orchestra, if that's the desire.
And I think Mr. Thomas has passed along that we're limited to just band equipment because of the special meeting agenda.
That's the direction. I can sit down with both band directors and work through, if we've got that, what they've got to work with, and come to what instruments that would entail and where they would be placed.
I'm in favor of the 150.
Okay. You know me, I'm conservative. You know, I love my band.
And I don't know, it's not on the agenda, but I want to make sure that orchestra, since we are talking about music, okay, that if this is just for the band, we need to understand what the needs are for the orchestra in an upcoming meeting.
I don't know where the two crosses over. Would you be amenable, I mean, we've got a lot more meetings this year, to do 75 for band right now, then perhaps at a subsequent meeting, allocate, when we have the ability to allocate something to orchestra needs?
We have no idea what orchestra, I don't have any idea what orchestra may need.
That would go in that discussion that Mr. Christie is going to have with principals about the money. Again, on the other original proposal, orchestra and music was included in that. So that would go in that discussion, the one that which was item number 4 that we passed over and said we're going to do a special meeting on. Orchestra and music were on that proposal. So that would go there, and that would be the discussions that Mr. Christie would have, and he could bring it back at that special meeting.
Are you proposing, Mr. Peridot, that perhaps we would give Mr. Christie some time to think about how this might best be laid out, and we'd address it at the next meeting?
We've already did that. We did that in item number 4.
In terms of band instruments? I mean, we could
That was in-
pass on that right now, and then
Well,
you
we
can
can
come back.
pass on the band instruments as well and put it out on that night too, if you want to. But I think there's been a lot of information that's been supplied about the band.
So I would suggest, as a concept, we do 75 now for the band, and then perhaps at the next meeting, we look to Mr. Christie to see if he wanted to allocate another 75 to some mix of band and orchestra. But that's, again, that's the conservative part of me.
Yeah, I just don't know if 75 will, I mean, obviously it would help, but based upon what Mr. Payne's put together, he needs more than that. Or is requesting more than that. And if we're going to, if we can reuse the instruments that are in still working condition and move them down to RDC and the other schools, you know, they may not, their needs may be less, you know, they may not need what they're requesting. They may have to come back and say, okay, we requested 30,000, but we're getting these instruments, now we may only need 5 or 10, something of that nature. So I'm in favor of the 150. And I'll make a motion. Not to, unless you want to continue to discuss.
I'll let you make the motion.
Okay. I'll make a motion to allocate 150,000 to band instruments, equipment, and replacement.
Have a motion by Mr. Talby. Are you clear on the motion?
You
Okay.
didn't already make a motion?
No, I was tossing out the concept. I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Heisel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Ritchie,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and our next meeting will be on Thursday, 14th. Thank you all.
You know, I'm real conservative. I haven't told you that before.